Then you'll get my thing. I'm very happy to be here. And I feel like this is one of my classes. Put that thing up. There is something, when Hannah and I met, it was a confluence of energies. And I realized at that point that there was something that I could say to virtually every department, to virtually every human being that I could get in front of. That I had something to give, even in the most media-driven, the most technological world that we live in now. And when the theme, Rediscovering Our Roots, came about, I realized, oh my good gray shoes, I am your root. Because I am a living body, carrying information, moving in space. And before there was that, I'm so glad you put that up, before there was that, there was me. And when I was talking to Chris earlier on, and you know, how does one introduce oneself? I like to introduce myself as Dionysus, because I'm also a Greek and Roman scholar. And when I left my professional career in theater, by the way, they tried to hook me up to amplification twice. And I was on stage before mics were used. And the kids that I work with cannot believe that. Especially the kids in the musical theater program. They come to me and they say, oh, Dr. Russell. I say, what? Do you know I did not wear a mic until 1994? And they go, that was the year I was born. Thus endeth the sermon. So there's something about what I do that transcends media, that transcends information. Because I present this living body and I move it with what I say. I allow what's going to be said to come to me. Because you can't deny that we live in a society that needs to be programmed. It needs to be scheduled. It needs to be planned. Thus, the existence to me in my life of media. I am the result of a mediatized society. I entered the world as a living actor. There literally is virtually no video of me performing. And in a very strange way, my students do not believe that I existed in the world of professional theater. That to me is astonishing. It is astonishing that the existence of tape, the existence, I know, I'm big. I get close to Chris, he goes, fantastic. Because the function of me, and the way I propel myself through my life in my work as a living body is to wake us up to our roots, to wake us up of the power of this human body moving towards you, the power of the information that it contains, and how you in your career as media specialists can still harness a kind of liveness, can still bring us out of a world that is expected. Because I come to you as what I call the unexpected other. Because when I'm around you, you really don't know what's going to happen. And the power of that in the classroom, the power of that in your art, the power of that in the way we communicate, somehow we must transcend this two-dimensional media understanding of kids. I come to you, I have to get images of what my function is before I speak in front of the crowd. And I was just waiting, I was in the shower this morning and I was going, all right, what is this image? And I saw myself standing on this bridge between faculty members that are terrified of integrating media into their classrooms. A bridge between students that cannot connect with a professor unless there is media attached to the presentation. A generation of citizens that believes video before they believe. Did you watch the vice presidential Who's-He Poo? Oh my gosh, we have to watch that. Because what happens is that then mediatized images get control of that live event. And for me as an actor, I was watching Joe Biden saying, dude, he's playing the house. How many were there, 500 people in the audience? And Ryan, for all of his, sort of his uberness, he's such, like this. And he didn't play the house. Biden's like, dude! He's going to the back of that room. And that's old school communications. That's oration. That's Dionysus coming in and shattering media. And it's too large for the screen. 25 years I lived as a live professional actor. I didn't do television, I didn't do film because they said I was too big. And I said, yeah, baby. I'm the potential. I am not the problem. When you teach kids the agency of potentiality instead of the real-time probable and expected, and you find some way to harness that in technology, because I'm asking you to bend. I'm asking you to figure out how to come towards my largeness in your work, to come towards my potentiality in actually making immediate change. You know, media and I have a funny relationship. Not funny ha-ha, but funny. Je suis do not trust. Je suis I'm using the French. Je suis I have a hard time. And believe me, at this juncture in my career, this is my second career, 25 years as an actor. I go up for tenure this year. So I've just begun an educational, oh, please come in and be amongst us. Come in, be amongst us. Oh, she's sitting there, don't talk to her. I have great classes, and when the kids come in late, when they come in late, first off, we all stop and we go. And then the young people have to go, I apologize. I apologize for my lateness. I am coming to you live. I'm not videotaping. I apologize. And then the class goes, you are forgiven. And then they have to sit down because there's something living happening. So when I say I do not trust, I do not understand, that does not mean that I do not want to. I want to utilize media commons. And in fact, on one of the projects, Hannah and Ryan and I are working in a collaboration with the One Touch Studio that you are going to see, which is quite miraculous. My students, in a living oration of 15 weeks of engagement with, hang on, gentlemen, stay very calm. I'm a real, live, living out, proud feminist. I always follow the laugh. I love my sister. Thank you, my sister. Thank you, my sister. And something that the most intrinsic part of being a real, live feminist is understanding that the most powerful, the most revolutionary act a woman can make is to stand still on a stage and speak. I'm terrifying because I'm a highly educated actor. I'm terrifying because I can harness liveness at any moment. And my desire is to be able to harness media to help me connect to my students. So I have to push through my fear. I am 55 years old. I was born in North Carolina. I came from poverty, from generational poverty. I only understand a childhood spent on government cheese. That's how I was raised. I was raised in mercantile farming, and then my mother was a singer, so I didn't even know which bathroom to use. My dad is farming and dealing in a kind of life in the soil, and my mother is way up here in ephemera. So I was raised, I guess, with the probable and the possible. So I'm the luckiest kid in the world. You know, the other stuff was just stuff I had to work through. But my understanding, and I frame my stories, because I'm a story catcher. Is my thing up there? Yes. Hello, it's me. I frame my work, my research, inside stories, inside of individual stories, inside discovering what has made you the fabulous Christmas that you are. And how can I create a frame and understand your trajectory in an individual way and take that individual story and create the story of a history, the story of a culture, the story of a people. Now, I framed myself in very specific ways to you. First one was feminist. Second one was Southern. Third one was raised poor, was poverty. The fourth one, I guess the first one was actor. I just ask you this, yell out a word to me. When you found out I was an actor, what's the first image you get in your mind? A media image. Actor.
Glamour.
And don't you love that? You know, I love that you said that. As a Greek scholar, the function of actors in the Greek society were to carry forth cultural stories and information. So it's not so much about glamour, because you couldn't see them because they wore masks. So it was not about that. It was about a physical body carrying a story. Carrying, well, you know, Oedipus. The Greeks, you know, the guys in the Senate were going, please, don't sleep with your mother, or you will give birth to your own brother and sister, and then put your eyes out and die. I mean, truly, that's what actors did. Actors carried the stories. Actors tried to change the culture. Actors brought information. That's what your job is to help us move into a new society where media can tell scholarly stories, can give forth information. But also, my world has been rocked because I had an experience at Radio Park Elementary. Let me tell you quickly what I do. In cultural conversations, I believe in capturing stories so we might understand generations, genders, races, sexualities, religions. And so most of my work actually is with an age group between 13 and 25. I work in the middle. I'm integrated into the State College Area School District. I go into middle schools and high schools, and I use playwriting and performance as a way to talk about social issues. I've done projects in schools with middle school girls on female body image and self-esteem. Can you imagine? And you talk about a media-driven event. Because the first thing they bring back are pictures out of magazines, are clips on YouTube of models, on the very images that are media-driven that are creating their experience. I had a mother come up to me and says, you've got to help me, you have to take this into Radio Park Elementary. My 6-year-old daughter is wearing a belt so tight that she is bruising herself because she wants a waist like Miley Cyrus. 6 years old, and the child was bruising herself. So you see my problem with media. You feel me? Because I work in the generation that takes mediatized images and creates themselves. But what I have to do is what this oration is about, is reversing the image. Because I have to come to you and ask you to help me with that. I have to ask you to, in the back of your mind, begin to think of the agency that this department might have. Because as you so rightly said, Chris, we are never more than a half an inch away from the Sandusky scandal. Ever. We are never more than a half an inch away. My privilege this year, this is the second opportunity that I've had to speak to a group of people. The first one, Tammy was with me there when I spoke to advisors from all across the Commonwealth. How are creative ways that we can deal with advising generations of students as they come in? Because they're not our age. I work from the frame of going to Radio Park Elementary because the mother asked me to go, working with 3 8-year-old little girls. And here was the moment that I really went, help. Because the teacher and I are at a laptop. We're trying to record what the kids are saying, 8-year-old girls, and they're going, I gave them the assignment. Here's the assignment I gave 3 8-year-old little girls. I said, help the children of Haiti. Save them from starvation, save them from a life of being an orphan, save the children of Haiti. So the kids just started riffing. Okay, this is all we're going. This was the first thing they said. Take 1 penny from every citizen in the United States of America and send it to the children. I went, geez, so simple, so simple. But they're doing this. We're trying to capture it, and we're like this. And finally, the teacher says, stop, stop, stop. I can't type that fast. You're going to have to go back. and all three of the little girls came and stood behind me and the teacher, and one said, well, you're in too many windows. If you close that window, you do that. But you can also, and one of them said, did you bring your dongle? Because if we attach this, but you have to stay calm. You have to stay calm. Do we say, yes, could you tell us how to shut that program down, please? So this is where they are. It is who they are. And the more I move in the school system, working with the kids that are coming here, the more I move in the school system, the more I understand that media is not a tool to them. It is a belief system. Hear me. We have God and media. I believe in media. Not me, that's them. There's a moment, y'all know the musical Hair? Give me the leg with hair. Remember that? When I teach history of musical theater as well, I get to the Hair moment, which has been advanced for me as a moment because I go to YouTube and I pull up images from the 1968, 69 years of the United States of America. And I show them Chicago. I show them assassinations. I show them our colleges that are blown apart by Vietnam. That's my era too. And my first experience as a theater artist is lying. My brother was going up for draft. He took me and I laid down in the streets of Greensboro, North Carolina in fatigues with ketchup coming out of me, and I was a victim. And at my entry into theater is activism. So that was my first experience as an actor. Can you imagine me in Phantom of the Opera? I love that I have a collective laugh. Because that's where I ended up. I was 5 years in the company of Phantom of the Opera, which by the time how I started there in political activism, in carrying stories to people, I ended up in the most mediatized performance on the history of the face of the planet. I became a living media image. Because I don't know if you know Phantom, but I was a swing. I played all the female roles except for Christine, because I was a little too old in their mind, not in mine. But how I was taught, here's what's called the track. Here are the pictures. You just need to understand that Carlotta walks down on her high E, raises her left hand, and gestures. Her right hand and gestures to the left on the high note. And I went, what? That's Judy Kaye's performance from 1987 that she won a Tony Award for. So liveness at Phantom was reduced to simulating the images of a successful past. I started in the street with ketchup and fatigues on, and ended up in the longest running musical in the history of the world, imitating media images from the past. That doesn't mean it's not magical, because it changes people every day of the year, but it means that media entered my world as a living actor. So I again press this forward to you. It is who they are. How can we continue to talk about things? Because I want you to know what I teach in my class. I teach civility. I teach accountability, I teach responsibility, and I teach consequence. That's what I do in my class. And I also teach feminist theory and contemporary female global playwrights. But I teach civility, accountability, responsibility, and consequence. How can you help me? That's rhetorical. How can you help me? Because you are part of this solution. And I will return over and over to the Sandusky horror that we are still and going to be forever inside. My next two keynote speaks are in one is in London and the other one is at Oxford. They have asked me to come and talk about women's leadership in times of crisis, but also our leadership as a faculty and administrative and staff community, because the world is looking at us as a new era in handling chaos, in handling catastrophe, in handling the recreation of a university. And we get to take this very seriously. Part of what I am doing with my friends here and with One Touch is that my class, Theater 407, which is called Women in Theater, where we take feminist theory and we pair it with plays from a global perspective, women all over the world writing about their experiences in Africa, in Romania, in France, in Germany, in Australia. These are the playwrights that I work with, because to me a play is a story of a person inside a social event. The problem with theater, and I might enter into your world here and question you whether you think this is a problem. In the School of Theater, we perceive ourselves as outside of the culture that has created us. Oh, we're actors. We're outside. I know, I see my sister again nodding. Yeah, it's easy to do this because I love that you associated me with glamour, and I'll take that. But the Department of Theater's answer to the Sandusky horror was to cancel a show about a pedophile. That's not activism, that is reactivism. We're going to react. We're not going to do that show because it's too close, because we don't want to offend anybody, and we don't want to set off. I mean, it's a terrifying moment. We don't want to set off someone in the audience, because this is a moment of psychology, it's a moment of civic responsibility, it's a moment of, my students identify themselves to me as victims of abuse. I get that, and I don't know if people come to you in Media Commons and speak to you. We get it, we hear this because we are storytellers. So you don't know exactly how to handle things first, so you react in safety. So we cancel that show about a school teacher, male, who has relationships with young men, really close. But we leave the play about a sexual predator who kills little girls. We leave that play. So, as a feminist, I go, wow. And my poor best friend is Raymond Sage, and my poor best friend Raymond says, can't it ever just be a play? Can't it ever just be a joke? Can't it ever just be a television show? And I say, no, it can't. Because it's my job to stare at the television show, to stare at the picture, to stare at the image, the mediatized image of women, of kids. Okay, we're following Honey Boo Boo in my class. We are following, my sister. Y'all guys know who Honey Boo Boo is? Honey Boo Boo, TLC. She is a product of Tiaras and, what's the name of the show? Toddlers and Tiaras. I love that. Toddlers and Tiaras. Everybody knows the show. We are following Honey Boo Boo. Either Honey Boo Boo, who is a pageant child, who has been in pageants since she's 4 years old, and she is an espoused, identified, loud, and proud redneck. In fact, she says, you better redneckinize I'm a redneck. This is a family that dumpster dives for furniture in Georgia, that spends every piece of money they get on the child. It might be the child's only way out, I don't know, but there's something about this kid that's fascinating, because she is a big kid, and she loves her belly. And they say, how are you going to be in the, what you going to do in the swimsuit competition? Because she goes, love my belly. There's something about Honey Boo Boo, because she claims herself. She loves her family. But there's something terrifying about the mediatized response to Honey Boo Boo that I study as a feminist theorist. So I'm going to keep coming out to you. What is your responsibility as a culture that wants me to work with you? These two have given themselves the assignment of working with my kids on creating a video, and we'll be talking about it because their eyes are going, what are we doing? What are we doing? I have given my students the assignment to create a 3 to 5 minute video, group work, on a feminist response to the Jerry Sandusky sexual assault scandal. In video, a feminist response, based on 15 weeks of reading the story of feminism in this country, beginning with Betty Friedan in '62, going all the way up to Jessica Valenti, who was just here 2 weeks ago. Extraordinary. And she talks about us as the, what's the videos that the guys sell that they catch girls showing their breasts?
Girls Gone Wild.
Girls Gone Wild. See, I love that she just knows it right away.
You know too much.
You know too much. Jessica Valenti says that the portrait of teenage girls is being framed inside this movie, these films of Girls Gone Wild. That's terrifying, because all of a sudden those become the rules for engagement. It becomes the expectation of young men. It becomes what they think is real. Because it is obvious in my generation that they don't think I'm real anymore. I'm an old lady. And there's no video proof that I was ever on stage. So they don't believe in me. When you think of what you do as a belief system, that can be incredibly powerful. And the agency that you have in the recreation of this campus becomes even more imperative. When you work with me, you are working with a political activist, a feminist, and I'm also a lesbian. So I have a whole lot of things that I think about. How are people portrayed in the media that are homosexuals? How do my kids both represent that in mediatized images, but they also resist the category? This is a challenge. And when you talk about scholarly storytelling, when you're working with a young person that puts up an image of Ellen DeGeneres, now Ellen and I have great hair, but Ellen and I are not at all the same. At all. Notice how I find my life? It's never, This is something I was born with from my mother. But I keep trying to be amongst you, but I keep drifting back. And one of the guys, you notice I'm not doing my slides. But I say all the time, the marks make the maker, but the story makes the culture. Ellen is a mark on me. But the story of Ellen might just become the history of lesbians in this culture. What's it called? Girls Gone Wild? Girls Gone Wild is a mark that you're marked with that, by the way. Girls Gone Wild is a mark, but it might become the story of our culture. Yeah, I see you doing this. We get to understand in media, we get to understand that the responsibility, the accountability is global. And through media, I am marked by specific events. Always in times of trauma, people return to living artists. Always in times of trauma. What is it that I have that is helping you? I don't know. It might be this resistance to an image. Resistance, the claiming of myself as an individual. We cannot be so subsumed by technology that we forget technology must be at service of individual people. It must be at service. And so your choices of how you're going to use it as a service instead of a belief system, and you and I, you're a young man.
Oh, you're right.
You're, God bless you.
We're both young.
We do. What we have seen in our years, this radical shift in accessibility. I also leave you this phrase that access to information does not equal socialization. My children, my kids, my students can get anything they want at any time. I don't mean they know what to do with it. Because what I teach them in the class to do with media is to put it at service of them and not become a slave to it. It is a tool. It is not who you are. But the kids I work with, I don't know what's happening, it's Greek. The kids that I work with at Mount Nittany Middle School and Park Forest, in my family, incidences of my youngest niece, I know she hears me telling this story, and I've been marked by this story. She's a great grown girl now and has transcended, of taking pictures of her body and sending them out in middle school, because that's what you do. The responsibility of a culture that views media as a belief system and a practice instead of a tool, that might be my greatest call to arms for you. Because I'm a story catcher. I am someone who brings living bodies to you in all of their flaws and all of their experiences. I have seen a great large world. I've experienced death on a small scale with my grandmother, who is lying in the bed in the nursing home and hasn't spoken for 2 years, and at the moment of her death looks up to the left and says, "Oh, look, see?" I hear that all the time. Death on a large scale, Midtown Manhattan, September 11th, 2001. Coming down, 45th and 8th, that's my house. Is that a movie or is it real? Here's me, look to the right. Is that a movie or is it real? Then getting a call from my mother, who is an Irish witch. After the towers had come down, my mother got through on my cell phone. And this is what I heard. Go find your brother, he's in the South Tower. I am marked by that. But media, we eventually found my brother because he was on C-SPAN at the St. Regis Hotel. He had called his office in South Tower and said, "I don't want to meet there, I want to have breakfast at St. Regis." He saved 50 people, and he's on C-SPAN standing in front, reading names for hours, names of the people that were with him. So media and I, but that's us. Maybe that's just us. I don't know. So I ask you, and I know my time's almost up, and I had like 100,000 slides. Let me skip together. Let me skip together. Let me skip to the really juicy one. Look at that, look at that, catastrophe, look at that. This is very impressive. Tammy, you remember these? This to me is for all of us. What if we react, regroup, recover, and redefine ourselves as a mission? What if you, in your daily life, you, in your work in Media Commons, devotes yourself to those 4 words? We've already reacted. How can you help us regroup, recover, and redefine? And because of this right here, my friend, this is you and me. We were raised in a reading culture. We got all our information from reading. Who we are teaching our kids that are in a culture of reading and writing the culture itself. They create the culture in immediacy. And if they're going to create this culture, it's us to help them. It's our responsibility to help them read it. I've got it behind my back with the switch. There they are. There they are. These are the girls I worked with 2 years ago from Park Forest Middle School, talking about female body image and self-esteem. That's them. And they're coming in never having not had this in their hand, never having not had access to global information, and having virtually no access in that thing to what it means to be civil, to what it means to be. Somebody sent me a YouTube site that was so disturbing yesterday. And this is what we do. My 407 class has both this project. We have an active Facebook site where they post what we're talking about. through articles, through film clips, through commercials, through postings on YouTube. There was a posting of a girl confronting a bus driver in Cleveland. I don't know if any of you have seen this. And have you seen this video? It is so horrifying to me that she enrages this, they are back and forth. First off, where's the adult in the room? This is a kid, and you're an adult. He eventually stands up, goes up to her, and undercuts her, hits her. She falls out of the bus, and he says, if you want to act like a man, I'm going to treat you like a man. And I said, so many things to think about. So many things to think about in that. But people are posting it. The reception is what concerns me. The reception of people that think that's cool, that think that's good behavior, that thinks you don't respect your elders, that thinks it's all right for an adult to hit a child. The reception of that. Somebody shoots out the door to the Obama re-election campaign headquarters. Where was that, in Ohio today? Yesterday? The reception of that, of somebody who thinks that that's okay, who thinks that's what you can do, who wants to be famous. This is where we are. My hero, Judge Judy. I love Judge Judy. Tammy, do you remember what I said about Judge Judy, that I love about her so much? Oh, that's okay. I'll tell it to you again, you'll never forget it. The title of her first book, Don't Pee on My Leg and Tell Me It's Raining. Love her. Yeah. Somebody now this was funny. Somebody put on the Facebook site from my class, I'm almost through. Somebody put on the Facebook site from my class, what if Judge Judy had moderated the first presidential debate? Brilliant! It was brilliant because she said, shut up! You're an idiot! So there were clips for both candidates, and then Judge Judy was running the show. My other hero, Cesar Millan. But my true hero is Daddy. Daddy the dog, the pit bull, who had been a fight dog. And through Cesar Millan refusing to see him as a fight dog and actually showing him that he could stand still in a room with other fight dogs and not react, but help them recover and redefine themselves by his own behavior. Daddy passed 2 years ago, and I sent a card. And I did. No laughter. I did. Because he's my big teacher. Because and he would just walk up to you and just stand there with you. And you'd be mad and scream at him and mad and scream at him, and he'd just go. Because he's very Buddhist by the time he died. Because it was, I will not let your behavior remove from me who I am. So, I send you to the rest of your conference asking you, what if you could realign priorities in Media Commons, programs in Media Commons, principles? How would you recreate the system? How would you recreate Penn State? How would you recreate this country? How would you recreate your culture? It might be through awareness, observation, articulation, activation. Final words for you. Do you remember the runner in the Olympics who broke his leg while he was running? And someone asked him, and he crossed the finish line. They asked him, how'd you do it? He said, faith, focus, finish. He had faith in his ability and in himself, and he focused on the task, and he finished it. So we can do this. I empower you. I ask you for help, because we can't do it alone. Good luck with your conference. Thank you.